There is an enormous amount of work being done in one of the most earthquake-prone places on Earth.
A mission to achieve hydro-hegemony, turn water into a weapon, control how it flows and where it flows. A host of targets have been identified.
China's latest Megadam, towering over the Yangtze River, was hailed as a revolutionary leap in renewable energy.
That's kind of the speed things move here in China. They don't just talk about it, they do it. And that's really amazing.
With this bold hydropower venture, China is tapping into a resource that supports not just its people, but also 1/5 of the world's population.
So it's not so much having to build something massive as to exploit the power that's already there.
But instead of the triumph everyone expected, it's now at the center of global shockwaves.
But they are failing even before China had a chance to play them.
What was meant to be a clean energy milestone has triggered concerns about potential environmental disasters and geopolitical tension. Rumors are swirling. Could this massive structure be on the verge of collapse, or is something even more troubling happening behind the scenes? Join us as we dive into the startling events surrounding China's Megadam, the environmental chaos it's causing, and the worldwide impact that could change everything. A 200 billion yuan gamble.
Everything else pales in comparison, even the Three Gorges Dam, and there have been some crazy plans to realize this project.
When construction on the Three Gorges Dam began in 1994, it wasn't just about generating electricity to fuel China's rapid economic growth. It was also meant to tame the mighty Yangtze River, protect millions of people from deadly floods, and serve as a shining symbol of China's technological strength and national pride. But things haven't exactly gone as planned.
The country is seeing heavier rainfall, more intense flooding, and more frequent heat waves to the extent where extreme weather events have been described as the new normal.
These networks of dams have been constructed along its longest river as part of a series of hydropower stations in some of the most remote and inhospitable regions on Earth. These rivers, originating high in the mountains, provide water to 1/5 of the world's population, including the Yangtze River, which is vital to China's economic ambitions. More than a dozen dams are being built along this section, but the narrow canyons pose immense logistical challenges, especially in an earthquake-prone area. But that's not all. The project, which cost a staggering 200 billion yuan, around $28.6 billion, took almost 2 decades to complete and displaced over 1 million people along the Yangtze River. The government assured everyone that the dam would protect communities from a once-in-a-century flood. Yet, its ability to do so has been called into question time and again. Recently, those doubts have come back into the spotlight. The Yangtze Basin has been hit with the heaviest rainfall in nearly 60 years, causing the river and its many tributaries to burst their banks.
As pouring rain continues to soak central and southern China, an expert warns that one of the world's largest dams is at risk of collapse.
The toll has been devastating. More than 158 people have died or gone missing. 3.67 million people have been forced from their homes, and 54.8 million lives have been impacted. The economic losses are just as staggering, totaling 144 billion yuan, $20.5 billion. For all its grand ambitions, the Three Gorges Dam has struggled to live up to the lofty promises made when construction began. The construction efforts are flooding entire Tibetan towns, sparking rare protests in one of China's most tightly controlled regions. Hundreds of Tibetans in Derge County, known as Dege in Mandarin, located within the Gars Tibetan Autonomous Prefecture in Sichuan Province, gathered in front of the county government office to protest. They demanded an end to the construction of a 1.1 million kilowatt hydropower station on the Drichu River. Additionally, they called for the reversal of orders that would force thousands of Tibetans to relocate from Upper Wanto and Shipa villages, as well as 6 significant monasteries, including the 13th century Wanto Monastery, which contains invaluable murals from that era. These villages and monasteries are expected to be submerged once the dam's reservoir is completed. Local Tibetans argue that the hydropower project has disregarded the sacredness of these monasteries and their central role in the culture, religion, and values of Tibetan Buddhists. This project highlights the risks China is taking to transform its economy. The Yangtze River, stretching over 6,300 kilometers, is a true giant of Asia. As the longest river on the continent and the third longest in the world, only the Nile and Amazon surpass it. The Yangtze has played a central role in shaping China's history, economy, and culture. From its origins in the Tibetan Plateau, the river winds its way through China's heart, eventually pouring into the East China Sea at Shanghai. Along its journey, it touches nearly 1/5 of the country's land area, quenching the thirst of millions and supporting vital industries. The Delta region alone fuels almost 20% of China's GDP. Imagine a fifth of an entire nation's economy depending on one river. But the Yangtze is as dangerous as it is vital, which leads us to the pros and cons of this dam. Pros and cons of the Megadam. Dams have always been powerful symbols of progress. Massive structures that can control rivers, generate electricity, and supply water to millions. So when we talk about megadams, we're taking that concept to a whole new level. These enormous dams can power entire cities, offer flood protection, and help with irrigation.
About 22 billion cubic meters of water. And then it's released in a controlled way through this system of 46 spillway gates.
On the surface, they seem like the ultimate win-win for development and sustainability. But here's the catch. While megadams have incredible potential, they come with some serious risks. Building a dam isn't just about stopping a river. It's about changing ecosystems, potentially displacing entire communities, and sometimes even wiping out cultural landmarks that have stood for centuries. And when these massive projects go wrong, the consequences can be devastating. China, in particular, has embraced megadams in a big way.
China is building a super dam on the Brahmaputra near its border with India, according to a Chinese state media report. Now, the project comes amid heightened tensions between the two countries along the line of actual control.
The Three Gorges Dam, the largest hydropower project in the world, is a perfect example of China's ambition to harness the power of its rivers. The country has made enormous strides in clean energy through hydropower, but it hasn't been without a cost. In some cases, fragile environments are being reshaped, ancient Tibetan sites are at risk of flooding.
The Three Gorges Dam in China has reached peak levels, leaving just 11 meters until the reservoir reaches its maximum level. Officials have tried opening the floodgates to lessen the stress on the dam, but record rainfall this summer has made it a losing battle.
And with China being a seismic hotspot, there's always the looming threat of earthquakes. The real question is, do the benefits of these megadams outweigh the dangers? It's a debate that's not going away anytime soon. China estimates that the upper stretch of the Yangtze, known as the Jinsha, between Tibet and Sichuan, holds enough hydropower potential to produce 112 gigawatts of electricity, about a quarter of the country's current hydropower capacity. The region is considered the global epicenter of hydropower potential, with a string of rivers rapidly descending from the Tibetan Plateau to lower regions. This kinetic energy is being harnessed to help China reach its net zero goals faster, making hydropower a key part of their strategy. But here's the concerning part. Regions with high hydropower potential, typically areas with fast-flowing rivers, mountainous terrain, and significant water volume, often come with a major challenge: geological instability. This means that while the energy potential is huge, the ground beneath these regions is often unstable, making construction risky and difficult. Take, for instance, the Himalayas. This region has enormous hydropower potential thanks to its powerful rivers fed by glaciers and snowmelt. However, it's also one of the most seismically active areas on the planet, sitting right at the convergence of two tectonic plates.
We know the tectonic plates intersect there, so this would be one of the plates on this side and then another one over here, and then all of these fault lines.
This instability increases the risk of landslides, earthquakes, and flooding, which could damage dams or cause catastrophic failures. The proposed construction of megadams in the region has raised concerns about these very risks. Another example is the Sichuan province in China, home to the famous Three Gorges Dam. While the dam generates immense hydropower, Sichuan lies in an earthquake-prone zone. In 2008, a massive earthquake hit the nearby Wenchuan region, killing over 87,000 people. Though the Three Gorges Dam withstood the quake, the event highlighted the very real danger of geological instability in areas rich with hydropower potential. Landslides and tremors continue to be a concern for the region's numerous dams. These examples show that while high hydropower potential can be a huge opportunity, the geological instability of such areas makes building and maintaining dams an extraordinary engineering and safety challenge. The advanced technology required to construct infrastructure in such unstable areas is remarkable, demanding great effort and facing substantial logistical hurdles. The dams in this section of the Jinsha River are especially vulnerable due to tectonic plate intersections, making the area highly active with fault lines and constant movement. The largest dam in this cascade will stand 239 meters tall, surpassing the height of the Hoover Dam in the U.S. building. This dam is particularly challenging because it sits directly on the riverbed, requiring stabilization through the addition of rocks and concrete into the jelly-like base of the river. Landslides and avalanches are common in the surrounding steep mountain terrain, necessitating the construction of large concrete escarpments on the sides of the gorge. Concrete blocks, the size of high-rise buildings, have been installed along the cliffs to reinforce the structure. Known for its violent floods, the river has been responsible for some of the most devastating natural disasters in history. In the 20th century alone, floods claimed around 300,000 lives. One of the most tragic events occurred in 1931, when 145,000 people drowned during a single flood. Just a couple of decades later, in 1954, another flood and the subsequent diseases that followed claimed 30,000 lives. Beyond the staggering loss of life, these floods wreaked havoc on the land, washing away fertile farmland and causing billions of dollars in damage. The Yangtze is both a lifeline and a looming threat, a force of nature that has shaped China's development in more ways than one. To safeguard over 15 million people in Shanghai and the lower Yangtze floodplains, and to control flooding across nearly 15,000 square kilometers of land, the monumental task of constructing the Three Gorges Dam began in 1994. This engineering marvel, built at an estimated cost of $28 to $60 billion, as no one knows the exact figure due to the mix of government and private funding, is almost 200 meters tall and stretches over 2 kilometers across the mighty Yangtze River. It's designed to withstand even a 6.0 magnitude earthquake. The dam created the Three Gorges Reservoir, a massive body of water stretching roughly 600 kilometers upstream, with a capacity of nearly 40 billion cubic meters, about 32 million acre-feet. At the time of its completion, the Three Gorges Dam was the largest hydroelectric power plant in the world, boasting a capacity of over 20,000 megawatts. To put that in perspective, that's more than 20 times the output of the Hoover Dam, equivalent to 18 nuclear power plants, and enough to supply nearly 10% of China's energy needs. Without the dam, generating this amount of electricity with coal would release an additional 100 million tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. On top of that, the dam made the Yangtze more navigable, allowing massive freighters to transport goods deep into China's interior, a big win for trade. Yet despite its incredible benefits, the Three Gorges Dam has been steeped in controversy from day one. The environmental concerns are staggering, from disrupting river ecosystems and threatening endangered species, to worsening waterborne diseases and degrading water quality due to the river's slower flow. The rising reservoir has even triggered landslides and earthquakes, not to mention the forced relocation of over 1 million people. Entire communities were uprooted, and culturally significant sites along the river's banks were submerged. To address pollution fears, an additional $4.8 billion was earmarked during construction to fund new water treatment plants and garbage disposal sites along the river's upstream reaches. Despite these measures, the environmental and social impacts continue to spark debate. The Three Gorges Dam stands as both a symbol of China's ambition and a reminder of the complex trade-offs that come with such massive undertakings. Talking about massive, the dangers it poses to China's rich cultural environment are massive. Danger to religious and cultural heritage. China is a country where history, culture, and spirituality come alive in every corner. Think about the ancient temples, towering pagodas, and sacred monasteries nestled in mountainsides, places that have stood for centuries, where people still gather to pray, meditate, and honor their ancestors. These aren't just tourist spots. They're the beating heart of communities, especially in regions like Tibet, where religion and tradition are woven into the very fabric of life. But as China races to build huge infrastructure projects, like megadams for hydropower, these priceless cultural treasures are in real danger. Imagine a 700-year-old monastery with murals that have survived revolutions and wars, suddenly facing the threat of being swallowed up by a rising reservoir. It's not just the buildings at risk, it's the identity and history of entire communities. In Tibet, for example, monasteries aren't just places of worship. They are the lifeblood of villages. When one is destroyed, it's like ripping out the soul of the town. But that's not even the most shocking part. The dams are being constructed on unstable ground in one of Asia's most earthquake-prone areas. In 2007 alone, over 100 earthquakes occurred between the Sichuan Basin and the Jinsha River. If an earthquake were to hit the fault line along the Jinsha River, it could severely damage all the dams. The failure of one dam could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction, leading to the collapse of multiple dams, each compounding the disaster. The risks associated with these dams extend far beyond the threat of earthquakes, as they also pose a serious danger to Tibetan heritage sites and ancient communities. The dam will create a massive reservoir that will stretch tens of kilometers up the valley, displacing villages in its path. An official environmental impact report indicates that the Chinese authorities are aware of this. For instance, Beijing expects the Gangar Dam alone to displace nearly 4,000 people and submerge 5 temples. While the report does not specify which religious sites, experts believe that the Wo Monastery, which dates back to the 13th century, will be among those destroyed. Many Tibetan monasteries were lost during the Cultural Revolution, but this one was spared. It houses 700-year-old frescoes and murals on its walls, which will be irreversibly damaged by the rising waters. Leaked footage has shown rare protests from Tibetans, attempting to stop the construction of the dam.
China, stop building dams now! China, out of Tibet now! China, out of Tibet now! China, out of Tibet now!
However, China strictly controls Tibetan regions, making it difficult for information to emerge. Since sending troops to Tibet in 1950, Beijing has sought to assimilate ethnic Tibetans and create a unified national identity loyal to the Communist Party. In Tibetan culture, monasteries are far more than places of worship. They are the beating heart of the community, woven into the spiritual, cultural, and social fabric of daily life. Destroying a monastery isn't just knocking down a building. It's erasing centuries of tradition, spirituality, and identity. It's like ripping out the soul of the town, leaving a hollow space where once there was life, meaning, and connection. Yet despite the outcry from these Tibetan communities, the Chinese government has remained silent, offering no official response. Meanwhile, the dams being built along the Jinsha River, a major tributary of the Yangtze, are vital to China's aggressive push for more hydropower. These massive projects are meant to fuel the country's rapid development, but they come with immense risks. Locals often compare these mega dams to the fast food of the energy world. They deliver power quickly, just like fast food satisfies hunger in minutes. But the long-term consequences are much more complex. These dams have the potential to supply much-needed electricity to millions of people, but the costs are high. Entire villages may be submerged, displacing thousands. Ancient cultural landmarks like 700-year-old Tibetan monasteries with priceless murals could be lost forever under rising reservoirs. Think about it. Some of these murals have survived centuries of turmoil, from invasions to revolutions, only to now face the threat of being drowned in the name of progress. And that's just the cultural side of things. There's also the ever-present danger of building these massive dams in a region prone to earthquakes and landslides. If the ground beneath these dams shifts, or if a tremor strikes at the wrong time, the consequences could be catastrophic. A dam failure in one area could trigger a domino effect, leading to further dam collapses downstream. It's like stacking dominoes along a fault line. Any slip-up and the whole system could come crashing down. While China's energy needs are immense, and these dams promise to play a huge role in meeting those demands, the question remains, at what cost? Balancing energy ambitions with cultural preservation and environmental safety is proving to be one of the country's most difficult challenges yet. In case you're wondering why this dam is such a big deal, let's take a look at dams across the world. You'll be surprised at how China's Megadam beats many of them. Experiences from the world's biggest dams. Big dams around the world, like China's Three Gorges Dam and Zambia's Kariba Dam, are huge projects that show just how creative and ambitious humans can be. These dams produce electricity, help control flooding, and change entire landscapes. But while they bring a lot of benefits, they also come with serious challenges. Let's take a trip around the world, from Zambia to Canada, exploring the mightiest dams, not just for their structure, but for the sheer size of the reservoirs they hold. These massive reservoirs are shaped by the landscapes around them, towering cliffs, vast valleys, and the mighty rivers they block. And when it comes to dams, there are some impressive records to beat. First up is the Kariba Dam, a true giant. Built between 1955 and 1959 on the Zambezi River, right on the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe, this beast holds the title for the largest reservoir by volume, capable of holding a whopping 185 billion cubic meters of water. Designed by French architect André Coyne, Kariba stretches 579 meters in length and rises 128 meters high. It wasn't an easy project, though. Many lives were lost during construction, especially among the Italian workers who built it. Today, Kariba produces 1,320 megawatts of power for both Zambia and Zimbabwe. But there's still work to be done. Ongoing restoration aims to keep this massive structure standing strong. Next, we head to the Bratsk Dam in Siberia, Russia. This dam has the second largest reservoir, holding 169 billion cubic meters of water. Built in the freezing conditions of Siberia between 1954 and 1964, it stretches an astonishing 1.5 kilometers long. To put that in perspective, it's so massive that both a highway and a railway run across it. With 18 turbines, it generates a powerful 4,500 megawatts of electricity. Now let's move to Ghana's Akosombo Dam, which created Lake Volta, the largest artificial body of water by surface area. Built between 1961 and 1965, Akosombo's reservoir holds 144 billion cubic meters of water, making it the third largest in the world. This dam supplies energy not just to Ghana, but also to Benin and Togo. In Canada, we find the Daniel Johnson Dam on the Manicouagan River in Quebec. Not only does it hold 140 billion cubic meters of water, but it also holds the record as the longest multiple-arch dam in the world. Rising 214 meters high, this structure has a rich history, named after the Premier of Quebec, who championed hydroelectric power development in the region. The Guri Dam in Venezuela, also known as the Simon Bolivar Hydroelectric Plant, comes in next with a reservoir of 135 billion cubic meters. For many years, it held the title of the world's most powerful dam, generating a massive 10,200 megawatts, enough to supply over 70% of Venezuela's electricity. One of the most iconic dams in the world is the Aswan High Dam on the Nile River in Egypt. Its reservoir, known as Lake Nasser, holds 132 billion cubic meters of water. Built between 1960 and 1968, this dam not only generates 2,100 megawatts of electricity, but also controls the annual flooding of the Nile. But the dam's construction had a price. Rising waters threatened the famous Abu Simbel temples, sparking an international effort to save them by moving the temples to higher ground.
Abu Simbel was saved from being submerged in the lake and lost forever after an international outcry.
In Canada's British Columbia, the W.A.C. Bennett Dam on the Peace River created Williston Lake, holding 74 billion cubic meters of water. Built in the 1960s, this dam has been a key part of the province's economic development, generating 2,790 megawatts of power. Returning to Russia, The Krasnoyarsk Dam on the Enisej River boasts a reservoir of 73 billion cubic meters. Built between 1956 and 1972, it's another marvel of Soviet engineering, standing 124 meters tall and 1 kilometer long. Its power station, with a capacity of 6,000 megawatts, supplies energy to a large aluminium plant in the region. Finally, there's the Zaya Dam near the Russian-Chinese border, completed in 1975. Its reservoir holds 68 billion cubic meters of water, with the dam standing 112 meters tall. Fun fact, it took more than 2 billion cubic meters of concrete to complete. These megadams are not just feats of engineering. They reshape landscapes, power nations, and tell stories of human ambition. But with great size comes the great responsibility of ensuring these structures can stand the test of time and nature's unpredictability. Do you think the dangers of this dam should be overlooked for the benefits it offers? Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more interesting content. Click the next video on your screen. It is another video you will enjoy.